Ladies and gentlemen, ngicela nishayeleni izandla for iphupho lakabiko. Ngaze ngaba mude. Okay, so just to update you on our program, we are now going to be going into our first panel for the day. Thank you. We will now be going into our first panel for the day, a short panel, followed by the speech by the head of state, President Cyril Ramaphosa. And after that, we will then take a short break for, I'll get back to you on how long that break will be, and then we will come back into the room for the second part of the day. As our panelists for the first panel get ready to come up, this is our very first panel of this convention, because before we can imagine any of the solutions that are going to come out of the national dialogue process throughout the next 6 to 8 months, we first have to be honest about the problems to get to the solutions. So I would like to please call up Sinesipho Soqudlwa from the Unemployed People's Movement, speaking for the grassroots and for the citizens who feel excluded from economic opportunity. I will then like to call up Professor Musawenkosi Saurombe from the Forum of Stalwart Foundations, bringing insights on leadership, values, and bridging the gap between generations. And then I would like to call on Boichoko Ditlhake, who's here to speak on behalf of the National Dialogue, on the National Dialogue process itself and how it can be a tool for transforming housing, urban development, infrastructure, and many, many more. Can we please have those panelists join us on stage? In this conversation, we are going to explore what is at stake, why now is the moment, and how a citizen-led process can move us from identifying the problems and building solutions all together. Do we have our other two panelists here with us? Boichoko, as well as Prof. Musawenkosi. Thank you. Apologies, please give us a moment as we wait for Boichoko. I'd like all of the panelists to please do a quick, short introduction of yourself and the organization with which you represent and why you're here today.
Okay. I have to get off the stage. Boichoko was dealing with a crisis. He's back. I was replacing him. Please come in, Boichoko. Okay. So, MC, I'm heading over to Boichoko. He's back. Okay. Thank you.
Apologies, apparently there's a crisis happening outside that had to be dealt with. In the meantime, I'll move on to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sinesipho Soqudlwa. I am from the Unemployed People's Movement in Makhanda. We are here today as the voice of the unemployed, especially young, black, working class women in townships and rural areas. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. All protocol observed, Your Excellency, all honorables and distinguished guests. I am Musawe Nkosi. I'm an associate professor at the University of Johannesburg, and I represent the Stalwarts Foundation Forum. Thank you.
Oh, that's it.
I don't know. He's saying that his people are not represented in the dialogue. I'm so thrown off. I thought we were just gonna like deliver our speeches and that's it.
A national convention. Today is the opening and the launch of the national dialogue. Today is not the national dialogue. Convention, Nyazi World Cup. The World Cup has football games happening across the country. The opening match happens in one place. We are at the opening match. This process has been designed specifically to be inclusive, has been designed to be led by citizens, and that is why we have citizen-led foundations that are part of it. That is why we have a panel of citizens that are representing groups of people. We do not intend on excluding any groups of people. However, there is only so much space in this room, and we have made accommodations for an overflow room. So those who are outside and wish to come in, can we please do so with order? If you would like to be in the room, we have an overflow room, but can we please not disrupt today? Ngicela ukuthi nje singaxabani tu. All right. Can we continue with the day? Our president has been waiting to convene. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, may we please settle down in the room? Okay. I think, Sinesipho, I'd like to start with you, please. You work at the heart of communities where unemployment isn't just a statistic. It's a daily reality. From what you're hearing on the ground, what are people saying that they need most urgently from our democracy today?
So, from this dialogue specifically, the word on the street, or what we must come out with, is that we must promote local industries so that jobs are created where people live. We must oblige the private sector to invest in communities instead of extracting from them and not giving back. And that we must ensure a living wage so that people are uplifted and not trapped in poverty cycles. So that's the energy on the ground.
Okay, and so in terms of speaking about solutions to this, is there anything that you guys have discussed so far?
Not really, no.
Okay, all right. I'll just move on to Sir, Mr. Boichoko. We've had a bit of a morning. Let's first, I think you were meant to go at the end of the panel, but I think to clarify the process of the national dialogue and what today is about as the national convention, can you please give us a bit of insight into that?
Okay, thanks very much and good morning. At the very heart of where and why we are here is for our ability as South Africans, firstly, to acknowledge that we have challenges as a country. It is the first opportunity since the dawn of our democracy. We need to find a way in which we can be able to talk to each other, because the solutions are many, varied, and some deep. And it is only through us talking as South Africans that we will be in a position to find the common and the shared tomorrow. This convention is precisely designed to kick-start a process for all of us as South Africans to find a way in which we can find lasting solutions. It is intended as a kickstart. We didn't come here to debate the substantive issues. We are here to set the framework and the pathway in which we are going to engage with each other. We are here representing our communities, our constituencies, both sectorally and provincially, so that we all understand how we are going to engage communities. If we agree that at the very most, we'll have to engage more than 10 million South Africans to find a way in which how they think and understand their challenges and what possible solutions could be. That is the purpose of this. And those discussions, let us reserve them for the communities from the ward level right up to the national level. And because there's a purpose and strategic intent of this process is to explore these issues. And we will come back after several months of engagement and dialogue with ourselves as communities. And then we'll come back and report back to this August forum what we have found and what we believe are the recommendations from South Africans across the length and breadth of the Republic of what needs to happen. That is the essence and the context of this convention. Let us set the rules of the game, but it must be citizen-led. The citizens has to arise and ensure that they own up to this opportunity, so that at the end of the day, they know that it is their own recommendations and resolutions to find long-lasting. So it is in that context, because as we'll outline earlier, the draft modalities that collectively we must shape, because we are here representing constituencies where we come from. We will understand the best modalities which can be employed to assist communities across South Africa to engage and contribute. And that's why we are here. And then we'll go back to them and say, this is what we have agreed, how we are going to play this process. And we'll be able to strengthen all these modalities as we go along. And I'm sure that we are ready, we understood that purpose, that nobody else will solve South African problems except ourselves.
Prof. Musa Wenkosi, I want to give you a slightly layered question. Speaking about representation and how can we ensure that something like this is done and that each community is represented and is touched. We've just had to deal with an issue of with an indigenous community feeling like they're not represented. How do we, through a process like this, tackle those issues?
Thank you for the question, moderator. It's very imperative that those who are marginalized in society are represented. And if you look at the discourse even over the years, it has been about fighting for those who do not have that voice. And if you look at giants such as Mama Tleke, that is what she stood for, you know. And even as, you know, she returned from her escapades abroad after having acquired her BSc degree in the United States, her purpose was to ensure that there is representation. I'm sure we can all recall, you know, in the echelons of history, how she insisted on women representation within a meeting that was held, you know, by the South African Native Convention. And so that is what we see also repeating in today's society, that those who are marginalized will continue to fight to have a voice. And I believe this is why we are all here, to give those who are not afforded the opportunity to even be in this room and to speak for them, because we are not representing ourselves, but those also who don't have the voice and the platform.
Prof, I want to just go a little bit deeper with you. We've often, I think with this process of the national dialogue, it's been received with a lot of skepticism. And oftentimes when something new, when change is being introduced, it will not always be openly accepted, right? But what we're seeing is this process being compared to the Freedom Charter being drafted, to the South African Constitution being drafted. What does a process like this, and it sort of seems like we're at the helm of history, whatever comes out of this process will be something that is going to be taught in history books, will be something that is going to be applied and will hopefully be the bedrock of a new South African society. How do we ensure that something like that continues to happen, and sort of looking at the other processes that we have gone through, what can we learn and make sure that we apply this time?
I believe that's why the whole process of consultation is very important. Now, as an academic in the field of industrial psychology and people management, I have had the privilege of interacting with material and also doing research in aspects of reconciling, for example, the perceptions of people in managerial positions and organizations and the employees on the ground. And I believe it's very much like, what often happens in the context where those who are in national leadership positions versus those who are on the ground, there are irreconcilable perceptions. And this is why this national dialogue is so critical in bridging that gap. There's an ancient Chinese proverb which says, as a leader, you need to, and I paraphrase, as a leader, you need to check if people are following, because if no one is following, you're just taking a walk. And I think it's very important that leaders start to ask themselves, are we taking a walk? Are people still following us? Are we still having the same objectives, the same goals, the same mandate? And this is why this initiative is very critical.
Sinesipho, I want to come back to you. When people are excluded from the economy, they are often excluded from decision making. How do you and your organization see this particular process creating spaces for real human beings, for unemployed and marginalized voices to shape the solutions that affect them?
So, as the people on the ground, we believe that, or we want this national dialogue to not be just another polite conversation that avoids the truth. We want this dialogue to tackle the issues that we deal with on a daily. We want it to go to the root of the unemployment issue. And we have talked and talked and talked, and we have come to the conclusion that the process should reject, or this whole dialogue should reject the failed neoliberalism and build an economy that's going to serve the people first and defend public goods. And defend public goods such as water, electricity, transport, and housing as rights and not as commodities. And we want and out of this dialogue, we want to end austerity because it starves our people. It starves us from the very basic services that we depend on. We want this dialogue to guarantee free, quality education from primary school to university level, because we believe that that is an investment in our future. So we are not here for charity. We are not here to be pitied. As the grassroots and working class, we demand real power and inclusion. That's... Okay.
I'd like to get a bit of clarity on the specific process of the national dialogue and how we can ensure that it is accessible. When I heard about ward conversations, it did frighten me a bit, because I don't know about you all, but I personally am not that involved in my ward. I don't really attend regular meetings. And so this process would require people to regularly attend those meetings. Is there another accessible platform or another way in which people will be able to be involved in this national dialogue? And how do we sort of, you've told us that we can have these conversations at home, but is there a specific toolkit that we that you guys are giving us to ensure that everybody anywhere can host their own national dialogue?
Thanks very much. If we look into the process of the national dialogue, the first thing that we must think about very deeply is how do we activate South Africans to own up to the governance and development of the country? How do we assist and start building the community structures to engage, for example, with the local governance process, municipalities? Because in many instances, some of our laws allows and enables communities to participate. But more often we are not using these possibilities. For example, how do we understand priorities which have been determined, for example, by a municipality at the local level? Therefore, the national dialogue is structured in such a way that simultaneously it assists communities to own up in the development of the country. At the ward level, each ward is going to have 3 structured dialogues. And there is a toolkit that assists, and there will be community-based facilitators which will appreciate different communities in which they exist, to talk to them and to talk with each other. That will be replicated across, as we have sectors around here, that a variety of sectors from the youth, women, business, labor, faith-based, will accordingly have some of the structured dialogues. But we are also creating a mechanism for self-activated dialogues by communities. For example, a particular community in Matatiele can say, we want to discuss our issues. All what we need to do is create a mechanism that the outcome of that self-created and self-activated community dialogue, it finds a space in the formal processes that we are doing, that the amplification of the community voice must find themselves in the final conclusions of this process. That will be very critical. We have put in, the new steering committee when it comes, it will also put in place. We have to utilize technology to reach out to communities, and we know that the youth of today were actually born into this technology. They will have to assist their elders, their communities, to ensure that they effectively participate. That toolkit is already online for everybody to go through it, amplify and strengthen it, and see how it can be modified in different situations at the community level. But we are certain that we will empower communities to take charge and own up to the process. And they must feel that they are making a difference and they have contributed to the new vision of South Africa.
So what I'm getting from you is that based off of the technology that the National Dialogue Committee, Organizing Committee, have designed a platform, a website, in which I myself as a citizen, if I wish to host a national dialogue myself in my community, I go onto that website and I will get the toolkit. The toolkit is what is going to equip me with what I need to be able to host the national dialogue. What are the specific points that need to be spoken about in the conversation, etc., etc. So that is how accessible and how easy this national dialogue process is going to be. Not only for us to attend physically in our wards, but we will be able to have a toolkit in our hands where we can host these dialogues ourselves. We're going to have to close the panel off for now, so thank you so much. Please give our panelists a round of applause. I'd like to call up Iphupho Lagabigo as we set up the stage.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lerai, and apologies to the band. Unfortunately, because we started late, we are running out of time. we have to go straight into the next item. Comrades, colleagues, friends, everyone else who identifies otherwise, we are now going to hear more from the Eminent Persons Group. Apologies, there are many changes because we are moving in quite a fast pace. We will be welcoming onto the stage the President of the country at this hour. However, before he rises, Mr. President, I hope you heard that call that was made in that panel. A question was asked that every now and then there be a pause among our leaders to look behind and see who is following. And we can't wait to hear, as you give us the line of march as the convener of the National Dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and help me welcome onto the stage Ntate Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the President of South Africa.
So long. You good?
There. Not today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Program directors, our two lovely ladies who are leading us today. The Vice Chancellor of the University of South Africa, my alma mater, where I was educated. Thank you. Thank you. Members of the Eminent Persons Group, and specifically the co-chairs, Professor Yimiko Maruleke and Mr. Ruth Mayer, and all the other EPG members, whose names I would want to outline towards the end of my input. Distinguished guests, I also want to greet the Speaker of our National Assembly, Joko Didiza. I heard word that the Chief Justice, Manisa Maya, might be here, and I greet her. She is here. I greet ministers and deputy ministers. I'd like to greet members of Parliament, representatives and leaders of civil society, traditional leaders who are here amongst us, faith-based organizations leaders, and I welcome back to those who are here within us, who are eminent leaders of various faith-based organizations. Business most importantly, my fellow South Africans. I'd like to welcome you all to this historic gathering. I have called this first national convention in my capacity as your president, as the head of state. I do so in line with Section 83 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. This gives me a locus standi. For all of us who are here, we are all equal. But it gives me locus standi because I happen to be the state president. So Section 83 of our Constitution requires that the President, as the head of state and the head of the National Executive, should promote the unity of the nation and that which will advance the Republic of South Africa and its people. This is what brings me here. And this is why I invited all of you to be here and to be part of this dialogue. So it is with that authority, if anyone were to ask you. I should thank everyone who is here today for accepting this invitation. I am truly humbled and very touched that all of you have heeded this invitation and have come through to this meeting so that we can have a dialogue. You have traveled from many parts of our country, in fact, from all parts of our country, to be here. This is a true honor to me as your president. It is a true honor to all of us, to each one of us. We should feel honored. Today marks the first sitting of the National Convention of the National Dialogue, a space where we confront our realities openly, respectfully and constructively. This is not a partisan platform. This is a national platform. Here, no voice is too small. No perspective is too inconvenient to be heard. We are gathered to listen to each other, to understand one another, and to chart a common path forward for our country. We are meeting at a time of profound challenges that confront our country and our people. Economic hardships that our people are living under, unemployment that continues to rise, inequality that besets our people, growing poverty, and a crisis of confidence in our institutions. We also meet at a time when the world is rapidly changing and our own ability to adapt and renew ourselves will define the next generation. But history teaches us that nations are not defined solely by their difficulties. Nations are defined by how they respond to the challenges that confront them. Our own struggle for freedom from the nightmare of apartheid proved that unity in diversity is not an abstract slogan. History teaches us that Unity is a powerful force for change, for transformation. Gathered in this hall today are people from all across our land, people from all walks of life, people of all races, of all classes, all languages and cultures. Gathered here at this national convention are farmers, are informal traders, civic activists, policymakers, traditional leaders, waste pickers, industrial workers, the unemployed men and women of our country, the unemployed young people, unemployed graduates, eminent religious leaders, business people, and public servants like me. There are also young people and older people like me, men and women, people from informal settlements and rural villages. There are people with disabilities amongst us. There are survivors of various forms of violence. There are artists, there are sports people and cultural activists. In this national convention is gathered the rich diversity of the people of this country. Yet, although we are different in many ways, although we represent different experiences and memories and hold different views, there is one thing that we have in common. And that one thing that we have in common is that we are South Africans. We are, each one of us, sons and daughters of the same soil, the South African soil. Whether people like it or not, we are sons and daughters of the soil, of Mzansi. This is where we come from. So we share a common past, but we also share a common destiny. We share the same inheritance of division, of inequality, of pain, and of injustice. We share the same pride at ending the crime of apartheid and establishing a constitutional democracy. We also share a common future. That future binds us together. And that is why we have chosen to gather here today. Because each one of us, regardless of our differences, is committed to working together to build this future that we all dream of. We have chosen to be here, voluntarily chosen that we will gather here as South Africans. We've chosen to be here because we believe in the power of dialogue and united action. A dialogue, by the way, is not a new phenomenon amongst us as South Africans. We have always dialogued to solve the most intractable problems that have confronted our country. We gathered together, and let me add that even as dialogues have happened in our country, there have been moments where others chose not to participate. There have been moments when others said, no, what is this all about? We are not going to be part of it. Now, I will tell you a story which I hope will not embarrass one of those who told me the other time, and is the leader of the Pan-Africanist Congress. He's here. He serves in my cabinet. And as we were preparing for the dialogue, he said to me, President, we as the Pan-Africanist Congress, we have always historically refused to participate in various dialogues. We were not there in Kliptown. They call it Kliptown. When the Freedom Charter was drafted. We were not there when there was a dialogue to end violence in our country. We were not there when the Constitution was drafted, when there was that broad dialogue. And he said, we feel that our voice, our views were not heard. And he said, this time round, Aibu, we are going to participate. We are going to be part of it. So there are those who are standing outside, who are saying we are not going to participate. And we grant them that freedom. But one day, they will be like the PAC. They will realize that they should have been part of the dialogue. Because the dialogue is about bringing people together, getting all of us to speak together, not to speak at each other, and not to talk away from each other. It should involve talking together. We believe that if we share our concerns and our fears, we can conquer them. If we understand the challenges we face, we can overcome them. If we know what hurts us, we can heal. If we know what divides us, we can unite. We gather here today in all our diversity to launch a national dialogue. We are embarking on a process that will launch 1 million conversations amongst our people. Now, this is a great honor to be able to instigate conversations amongst our people. All of us seated here must see ourselves as being truly honored that today we get to sit here and we are launching a process that will involve conversations of millions of people, 10 million people. But in the end, I see this conversation going way beyond the 10 million people who might participate. It will encompass many more millions of people in our country. This is truly a historic moment. Across the length and the breadth of South Africa, people will and must meet to talk of what worries them, what gives them hope, and how they think their lives and our country can be better. We all agree that our country is not where it ought to be. We all agree that there are many things that are broken in our country. Getting together, talking to each other, we should be able to find solutions on how we can put many of the things that are broken in our country together. This initiative is about what all South Africans must do together to make our lives and our country better. It is also about getting leaders to be able to realize what worries South Africans and how leaders themselves can be engaged in understanding the lives of South Africans and be accountable. And to look, yes, as my sisters were saying here, to look behind and see whether there are still people who are following them. Through this process, we want our people to meet in homes and community halls. We want them to meet in churches, in synagogues, in mosques and temples. Our people must meet in schools and lecture halls, in boardrooms and on the shop floor. on the pathways of our villages and the streets of our townships and our cities. We will meet online. We will be tech-savvy, as many South Africans are already tech-savvy, I found out during COVID. Our South Africans know technology. They are way ahead. They know technology. When we started distributing the 350, I tell you, it was through technology that they were able to immediately snap it. Even though they say, "Ay, uramatposa, otanda, o mahlalela," they did it through technology. So we will meet online. We will call into radio stations. We will debate on television. Yes, there will be many television shows. We will share our views and make our suggestions without hesitation. And we will be direct and honest. And we will need to have difficult conversations about many issues, including why do South African women have to live in fear of the men of our country? This is Women's Month, and I'm glad that these conversations should start this month, that we as the men of South Africa must begin to internalize this question. Why do the women of South Africa fear us as men in the streets, in the classrooms, and even in our homes? We need to ask ourselves those questions. We also need to ask ourselves, why do so many people live in abject poverty and so few live lives of opulence? Why, after decades of democracy, are the prospects of a white child so much better than those of a black child? We need to ask ourselves that. We also need to ask ourselves, why do women get paid less than men for the same work? That's what we need to ask ourselves. Now, we also must go deeper and ask ourselves, why, when we have a Bill of Rights in our Constitution, are the LGBTQI plus people still discriminated against? Why are they still stigmatized and harassed? Why do clinics run out of medicine? Are questions that we must ask ourselves. And why do taps run dry? These are some of the questions that we must be willing to ask and which we must be prepared to find answers for. But more than that, my fellow South Africans, these are the challenges that we must be ready to do something about. As individuals, as organizations, as communities, as parents, as elected representatives, and as public officials. The National Dialogue is a call to debate and to discuss, but it is also much more than that. More importantly, the National Dialogue is a call to action. It is a call to all South Africans to seize this moment for change and progress. And this we cannot do when we are sitting on the sidelines. This we cannot do when we do not want to be part of this conversation. And this we cannot do when we sit on the sidelines and just criticize. We need to be inside the tent rather than being outside of the tent. And we also need to have one tent. We do not need another tent where other conversations will take place. This is the real tent where conversation must take place. Now, it is a call to build a society in which there is a place for everyone, where the country's wealth is shared by all. A South Africa that truly belongs to all the people who live in it. We have come together in this national convention not to have the dialogue, but to start the dialogue. Gathered here, all of us together, we are well over 1,200 or 300 across many organizations and sectors. Our task is to prepare for the thousands of public dialogues that will happen in communities across the country over the next 6 to 8 months. We are here to consider some of the themes that may arise in those discussions, understanding that it is ultimately the people of this country that will determine the issues that should be discussed. And this is what we call citizen-centered dialogues and discussions. We are here to reflect on how we should approach these public dialogues, what methods we should use to ensure that everyone has a say and that the discussions take place in an environment that promotes understanding and that encourages healing. Through this convention, we seek to equip delegates to be champions and enablers of these public dialogues. We seek to ensure that we give the space to South Africans to define the outcome of the national dialogue process, so that those thousands of conversations can be drawn into a clear vision for the country and an agreed program of action into the future. There is history to this. When we drafted our constitution, and I'm glad that Rolf Meyer, who played a pivotal role together with some who are here, including myself, is here today, because we participated in the process of ensuring that as we drafted the Constitution, we involved many of our people throughout the country to discuss the key elements that should go into our Constitution. And today, the Constitution that we have is a people-driven and a people-drafted Constitution. That is what we have. Now, through the national dialogue process, we hope to arrive at a social compact that will outline the role and the responsibility of all of us as citizens, as the arms of the state, business, labor, traditional leaders, religious bodies, civic organizations, activists, and various other social structures. This national dialogue must be about citizens taking responsibility for their own future. Through the dialogues that will take place, people must be able to attend to the challenges that we are facing, where they live, where they study, where they work. They must be able to hold their public representatives accountable and ensure that all public institutions fulfill their responsibilities. The National Convention is the moment at which the people of South Africa take over the national dialogue. For more than a year, various formations of civil society have been working to conceptualize and champion the national dialogue. Central to this effort have been a number of legacy foundations established by and named for stalwarts of our liberation struggle. we express our gratitude and appreciation for the work of these foundations in giving life to the National Dialogue. And let's give them a round of applause for having done all this work. Now, we also thank all those from civil society, government departments, provincial government, state-owned enterprises and businesses who have worked tirelessly to bring this national convention together. I specifically like to say at government level, the Deputy President, Paul Mashatile, who is here with us today, led this process in the interministerial committee that I gave him the responsibility to lead. And he, from a government point of view, led this process from the back, allowing the process to evolve independently without too much government interference. To the extent that government got involved, if you like, it was light touch. Kancane nje, lapho nalapho. It was never led by the government. It was just mbijana, lapho nalapho kuphela. That's how it worked. Because we held the belief that this must be citizen-led. And today we are pleased that we are going to elect or choose a steering committee which will be a citizen-composed steering committee. And to the extent that, yes, we will be involved, it will just be to give it that little bit of support, logistical support, financial support. And let me talk about the finances, because there was this concern that this dialogue is going to cost 740 million rand. As soon as I saw the number, I said, I shall not allow the taxpayers' money that amounts to 740 million rand to be utilized. We can have this dialogue much cheaper, much lower costs must be the order of the day. That is what we did. And you know what? We were very fortunate. The University of South Africa, the Vice Chancellor, the good professor, immediately said, you know what, to cut off all those costs, we'll give you this beautiful venue for free. And now we got it for free. Now, that is exactly what we are going to seek to do. We will be going around the country. We will desist from hiring halls, expensive halls in hotels, and so on. We will want to hold the various dialogues in schools. We will hold it in churches, not in beer halls, no. And we will hold them under the tree and all that. So that is how we are going to bring the cost down, because the people of South Africa do not want us to be spending too much money on the conversations that we are going to have. So we are extremely grateful to the Vice Chancellor and the leadership and staff of the UNISA for hosting this national convention and providing the facilities and the services that they've made possible. I wish to thank the members of the Eminent Persons Group, all of whom graciously and enthusiastically accepted my invitation to serve as the champions and guarantors of the National Dialogue. These esteemed South Africans are Dr. Brigelia Bam, former Independent Electoral Commission chairperson, who accepted this role. Mr. Robbie Brosen, entrepreneur and business person. Judge Edwin Cameroon, I think we'll applaud them all together when I finish. Otherwise, you're going to be very tired. Judge Edwin Cameron, former Constitutional Court judge. Mr. Mani Dipicho, former Northern Cape Premier. Dr. Desiree Ellis, Banyana coach and football legend. I knew you wanted to applaud her. Miss Ella Gandhi, peace activist and stalwart. Miss Nomboniso Gasa, researcher and rural activist. Mr. Bobby Gotzel, a business leader, particularly in the mining industry. Dr. John Kani, award-winning actor. I knew you would applaud that. But he's not going to act on stage today. Mr. Siya Kolisi, Springbok captain and world champion. Miss Mia Leroux, Miss South Africa 2024. His Grace Bishop Barnabas Lekhanyane, leader of the Zion Christian Church, and His Grace Bishop Enganas Lekhanyane, leader of the St. Enganas Zion Christian Church, the Most Reverend Thabo Makgoba. How can the Most Reverend, I missed something because Leana ke Bishop, ke Archbishop. The Most Reverend Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, yes, Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town. Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, who is the chairperson of the National Planning Commission. Dr. Barbara Masekela, Os Barbara, poet, educator, and stalwart. Ms. Lindiwe Mazibuko, former member of parliament. When she was in parliament, she used to give me a lot of trouble. Mr. Rolf Meyer, former minister and constitutional negotiator and a good friend. Ms. Gwenwan Mhlophe, storyteller, writer and actor. Ms. Nompendulo Mkaachwa, former member of parliament and fees must fall activist. Ms. Khutazo Monjane, Grand Slam tennis champion. Professor Harry Rangwedzi Nengwekulu, former activist and educationist. Mr. Begin Chalinchali, unionist and former COSATU General Secretary. Hosi Filia Nwamitwa, traditional leader, Hosi Amin. Hosi Thabo Siaklulo, chairperson of the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders. Dr. Gloria Sirobe, business leader. Bishop Sitembile Sipuka, president of the South African Council of Churches. Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, founder of the Gift of the Givers. Professor Derek Schwartz, academic. Ms. Lurato Trok, author and early literacy expert. Mr. Sibusiso Vilani, mountaineer and adventurer, those who go on to the mountains. Mr. Siabulela Kuza, award-winning scientist and entrepreneur, the only South African who has a planet named after him. Now, I took the trouble to read all their names because they are the eminent persons group that I appointed on advice from a number of people, including from the PTT. These are the men and women who are going to be the champions, the guarantors, the wise minds that are going to steer this whole process forward, working together with our steering committee, working together with, yes, a management team that will be put in place, working together with the administrators and the secretariat who are NEDLAC. Now, since their appointment, the EPG, they have provided valuable guidance and support to me and to all those involved in this work. Lastly, I wish to thank all the delegates to this convention and everyone who is following these proceedings around the country. I do thank the EPG because when there was doubt on whether we should proceed with this convention today, they met and gave me counsel and gave everyone counsel who was involved and said to me, President, much as people might think that we are not entirely ready, the invitations have already gone out. Many people have already been invited. If we are to postpone this important national event, it will dampen the occasion, people will be more doubtful, trust will be lost, and they said we best continue with this dialogue. And as with all other events, there will always be gaps, there will always be shortcomings, but it is always best to press ahead and to get as much work that needs to be done. And I'm truly pleased that they gave that advice, because those who have been doing the work, the organizing committee, has pulled out all stops to make this day possible. And I'd like us to give them a round of applause. Now, all of you who are here, you have taken upon your shoulders a historic task. You have taken upon your shoulders the responsibility to launch a conversation among South Africans that will reach every corner of our country, that will determine the future of our nation. Let this national convention be a call to every South African to participate, to be heard, and to be counted. This convention should not be remembered for the fine speeches alone, but the process it begins towards a new roadmap, a framework for political stability, economic renewal, social cohesion, national unity, and how we can continue to build a capable and ethical state. We must aim to emerge from this process with a shared national vision, one that is bold enough to inspire, yet practical enough to be implemented. So let us speak with courage, without any fear. Let us listen with humility, and let us negotiate amongst ourselves with goodwill. Let us be reminded that our disagreements on any issue are small compared to the magnitude of what we can achieve working together. In the words of the Freedom Charter, which says, the people shall govern, that governance should start here, with a dialogue that belongs to the nation. I declare the first national convention of the National Dialogue of South Africa officially open. And may our work be guided by wisdom, your wisdom. May our work be grounded in truth and be blessed with the spirit of Ubuntu. The spirit of Ubuntu that must guide us for ourselves and for generations to come. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. President. We are going to swiftly move on to the next item. We would love to enjoy song and dance, and there will be time for that. Please help me in welcoming to the stage Professor Tenyuko Maluleke, who is a leader of the Eminent Persons Group, and he will lead us into the call to action that's directed at citizens, because as we all agree in this room, this conversation is not about a select few, but about all of us and all livers of society. Welcome, Prof.
I don't know if it is protocol to speak after the President has spoken. It's a career-limiting move that I'm making now. Mr. President, I will not go through the protocol because you have done so very elegantly. It is, for me and the Eminent Persons Group, a great honor to be part of this great and mammoth journey that you have just laid out for us as a country. Perhaps I have to extend our thanks to my esteemed colleague, Professor Puleng Linkabula, Vice Chancellor and Principal of UNISA, the only university in the country that takes the name of the country, deservedly. Thank you for enabling Professor Linkabula the commencement of one of the most important processes in democratic South Africa. May you convey our thanks also to the Chair and the Council of the University of South Africa. I know that I speak on behalf of each and every one of the 32 eminent persons which the President has just announced when I say there is nowhere we would rather be in this moment than this place and this occasion that is historic in our beautiful country. We are pleased to note that we gather here today not as factions, but as a nation, not as strangers, but as fellow South Africans, united in our purpose to build the South Africa we promised ourselves in the Constitution, in the National Development Plan, and in the inaugural speech of our founding President Nelson Mandela, which he delivered on the 10th of May, 1994. The Eminent Persons Group was appointed by the President as he announced. Each of us comes from different walks of life, different professional backgrounds, but we are unflinching in our commitment to safeguard the integrity, the inclusivity, and the credibility of the national dialogue. We serve in this role voluntarily, giving of our time and our expertise because we believe South Africa, our motherland, is worth it. We do not seek fame, prestige, or payment. As the President has already outlined, we are the champions of the national dialogue. We advise him and other structures of the national dialogue. We seek to guarantee that these processes will remain open, will remain honest, and remain truly national. We note the gains that have been made in our country over the past 30 years, but we do now face many of the problems you yourself have just outlined for us, Mr. President, and I will not go into those details. What is clear is that the faith of citizens in democracy itself is under severe strain. Many South Africans are poor, jobless, hopeless, and hungry. It is in this context that the national dialogue takes on a historic importance for us. If this national dialogue is to succeed, already it is showing a lot of success. It must be citizen-led. You have said so yourself, Mr. President. It must be radically inclusive, both in terms of participants, but also in terms of the issues on the table. No sector, no issue, no community should be left out. The national dialogue must be led with integrity and transparency. That's our task to ensure and assure. The national dialogue must be beyond reproach, from how decisions are made, to how resources are used, to how outcomes are recorded and acted upon. At all times, we will seek to ensure that the process is accessible to all citizens and that all our official languages will be used in the communication of all the issues pertaining to the dialogue. Only thus can we call the process credible. Failure to deliver a credible and successful national dialogue is not an option. We say this in the full awareness of the difficulties we face as a nation, including the differences that have surfaced within the preparatory task team. To all the stakeholders, we say, dialogue is the South African way. Dialogue is the womb out of which democratic South Africa was born. All of us gathered here today have an obligation to do everything in our power to reach out and to persuade all South Africans and their organizations to become part of the national dialogue. Both those who have withdrawn and those who have chosen to stay away, we need to go out to them and persuade. So today we call on every village, every platteland dorpie, every township, every suburb, every informal settlement, every rural hamlet to step forward and make this process their own. We call on stokvels, churches, mosques, temples, burial societies, book clubs, sport clubs, ratepayers associations, political parties, business chambers, trade unions, youth groups, women's groups. We ask all of them to turn their regular gatherings into dialogue moments. And in those dialogues, the hard questions must be asked. Listening must be deep, and above all, together they should help search for solutions for the problems our country is facing and the problems they themselves are facing. In the months ahead, thousands of local dialogues will ensue, and they will feed into the national dialogue process. Each one will be a brick in the foundation of our national compact, the shared agreement that will guide our country to the next 30 years. That compact will be written with the tears that will flow at the places where dialogues will take place. That compact will be written in the sweat of the workers of this country. It will be written in the blood of the martyrs who gave their lives for this democracy. Failure to deliver a credible and successful national dialogue is not an option. Perhaps to paraphrase Abraham Lincoln, we are ready to ensure and assure a dialogue of the people, by the people, for the people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that hearty call to action. As a villager of the Maragala people of Rasukukune, it gives me great joy to know that once again, Khoro will become a gathering for dialogue. And that's why we speak of memory, because we know who we are. We know of whom we are. And it's for that reason that, indeed, this clarion call must be carried by all of us. There's only one item that stands between us and lunch, and that is a panel that is going to interrogate a number of issues, looking particularly at the lessons that we can learn from other countries that have engaged in this process. However, before I do that, Lerai is going to come back on stage to go through the housekeeping rules that we'll need to observe as we go out to lunch and as we excitedly come back, because when we come back in the expectation session, that's when you will speak. That's when the conversation that we will be having in every ward, in every church, in every shebeen will be starting. And I hand over to Lerai.
All right, so just to refer back to the links that you all had scanned on the screens, the QR code, I just want to check with everybody. Have you managed to scan the QR code and get on the app and sign in? Yes, no, thumbs up? No. Okay, so can we please ensure that we have those QR codes back on? And can we make sure that through before lunchtime, all of that is sorted? Because after going into lunch, you're going to go into the themes that you have selected. So if you see on the application, if you selected theme 2, crime and corruption, or theme 3, winning the future through education and a healthy nation, theme 4, fixing the state and making the constitution work, and theme 6, gender and GBV. So if you selected theme 2, 3, 4, or 6, you will be going to the marquee at the terrace just opposite the Philadelphia cafeteria. So this is where you will be going for lunch. We're going to be breaking for lunch in our groups because the conversation will start throughout lunch. So just once again, theme 2, 3, 4, and 6 will be going to the marquee at the terrace opposite the Philadelphia cafeteria. Then if you selected theme 5, 7, or 9, theme 5 is building South African values, culture, and strengthening our social fabric. Theme 7 is dealing with intergenerational trauma and healing. Theme 9 is poverty and spatial inequality. So you will be going to the Khorong cafeteria and marquee opposite the cafeteria. Once again, theme 5, 7, and 9 will be going to the Khorong cafeteria and marquee opposite the cafeteria. Then themes 8 and 10, theme 8 is environmental justice, Theme 10 is land tenure and mineral rights. Theme 8 and 10 will be meeting at the Good Hope Cafeteria, located within the OR Tambo building. So we're just going to have the panel right now, but I will remind you once again after the panel, please be sure of the themes that you have selected, because when we break for lunch, everybody will be breaking into those specific theme groups and convening in those areas. All right. I would also like to advise you all that we have multiple catering stations around. Yes, sorry, the multiple catering stations, and so those themes need to go to the specific stations. I would also like to let you all know that we have a setting expectations session that is going to begin after lunch, where we get to hear from the floor and prepare for the dialogue lab breakaways. So the theme that you have selected on the application is going to be very, very imperative for the next session of the day after lunch. Please make sure that you are signed up on that. I'm going to ask the tech team to put the QR codes up once more. Remember, you are signing up with the same email address that you used to register for the event. All right, I'd like to call Austedo back. We can begin with the next plenary, which is going to be a panel discussion on looking at past national dialogue processes. As Teto comes back to moderate the conversation, I would like to call on our panel. On the panel, we have Jacob Abba Omar from the Mapungubwe Institution for Strategic Reflection. Please make your way to the stage and begin to take your seats. Kabele Matlosa, the former DG at Political Affairs at the African Union Commission. May I please also call on Nomfundo Mohapi, the CEO of the Center for Mental Wellness and Leadership. And the last member on the panel that I'd like to please call up is Itumeleng Motlhabane from Equal Education. May we please have those four panelists joining us?
Thank you. Thank you so much, colleagues. So one of the biggest conversations that have been happening on the sidelines of the South African debate around the national dialogue and its feasibility and its necessity has been a question around, but why do we need it? And I think and believe that one of the quickest ways to establish its need is to reflect on who else has had to rely on it as a method of cohesion or even as a catalyst to a future society that they want to see realized. And I'm going to start with my colleague on the far left, and yes, and just humbly ask you to give us a brief note around where else has this worked, and why were those nations in need of such what some may term extraordinary step? I'll just hand over.
Thank you. Colleagues, observing all protocols, Deputy President, and the President has apologized, he had to depart. I think this is a very unique moment because we're actually seeing two processes. One is a dialogue process that will connect with a social compacting process. And I think there have been lots and lots of international and local experiences of both. So if you look at international experiences, I want to refer you to an article that Eddie Maloka wrote where he spoke about three different forms that national dialogues have taken. Like the West African, post-colonial. You also had in Ethiopia dialogues around reconciliation and so forth. He described ourselves, South Africa, as being in a pothole crisis where we are stuck and we're unable to move ahead. And I think this is the moment that we really need to look at how we take it future. So that's on the dialogue side. On the social, and then our experiences, colleagues have already referred to that, the Freedom Charter, the attempt at arriving at the National Peace Accord, the Constitution, the NDP. On the social compact side, I think we've had even longer experiences. So, we've had the Job Summit, we had the Growth Development Summit. More recently, in response to the COVID-19 impact, we had the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Program, which arrived at through a lot of different role plays coming together. Now, that has a far longer sort of list of experiences where people have tried to bring the social and societal elements to arrive at a program. So what we're doing is combining the two, a national dialogue that leads to a social compact which we all commit to for the next 30 years with a long-term vision. So that's just to give you the quick sketch of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll move swiftly to you. In the interest of time, I do apologize if you feel that it's a bit rushed. It's because we can sense the restlessness in the room. It's been a long morning and a mini day. Please do continue, but I want you to build further away from where he started. He mentioned an example in West Africa, and how there was an organization around speaking to one another. One makes an example of even just closer to home, across the Limpopo River, where there was one such dialogue, or an attempt at it. What can we learn from those experiences?
Okay, Molweni Dumelani. Being civil society, I will go a bit off script because I was really asked to come and not just talk about the countries, but I am here to call for an approach that we need to consider as we get into the dialogue. And I was looking, it was when I was a young psychologist at 26 that I have been saying the same message. Actually, in the Premier's office, they used to call me Usiswe Wound, because that's the work that I do. I have been saying that unless as South Africa we learn how to deal with our woundedness and integrate it in everything that we do, we will continue seeing this paradox where there is a mismatch between our intentions and our outcomes. So what I want to propose, 26 years later, I come today not just speaking. I actually, if I could stand, I would do that, because I feel I have spoken it in so many places. And I feel that we have not fully... Sorry, guys, because I feel this is my last appeal to talk. And if we do not hear it now, we will never hear it. What I have been saying is that the downfall of our country is not going to be because we don't have intelligence people who've got information, who know the information. The downfall of our country is going to be because we neglect the wounds that we carry, that we enter into positions of leadership and influence. We have created an elite that has repeated the cycles of wounding and trauma in our country. So if we do not sleep to our wounds, we will write the things that we write, but we will repeat the very same problem. So today, maybe you may not hear my content, but I want you to hear my cry. I want to say that South Africa, unless we heal our wounds, we will continue to sabotage ourselves. Sisi, 26 years later, as a psychologist, we are now at a stage where there is research, there is neuroscience that backs this up. It's not just theory. For 5 years, I have started the Center for Mental Wellness, going into renewable energy, job creation, social entrepreneurship, education. We were with the police and we were looking at GBV, and they said to us, Nomfundo, we want to hlebela you in private. The problem is us. We are too wounded to even have. One of the policemen said, how do we prevent crime if we are too wounded ourselves? So I needed to stand up, please, because I'm hoping it will link. I hope some ear is going to hear what I am trying to say. I've been saying it for 26 years, but I hope today we can say, if we do not heal, we can write it all, but we will bleed. I am seeing it. I am seeing us bleeding on the very beautiful things that we create, because we are too wounded to create the kind of outcomes that we want.
Thank you so much. Sometimes when the fire needs to be let out, you have to let it out. And I believe that as a specialist in the mental health and wellness space, we get a perspective that our lack of communication and our lack of dialogue does not only harm us in the immediate, but those wounds fester for generations to come. And entire faces of nations change as a result of the wounds that we keep continuing to carry as we go forward. And we turn to the next person and they say, oh, we are a resilient people. But are we really resilient? Itumeleng, equal education, you deal a lot with the education sector. What should we be learning? What should we be taking to classrooms as we march into the dialogue?
Thank you so much. I think it's quite important that equal education isn't just taking education matters to classroom. I think the black woman has started the thing, right? But we organize the voices of the people, particularly people who aren't heard through the electoral system, which is the young people that are between ages of 13 to 19. Last year, we organized 4,000 young people to stand before Parliament and say, we know that in this voting process, we will not be heard, but rather we are submitting a memorandum so that the voices of young people are included in the processes. We cannot deny the fact that South Africa is in a poly-crisis. We don't need this dialogue to help us figure out that our country is currently going through a crisis. The people are talking in taxis, the people are talking in different platforms, the people have continued to talk, and the government has unfortunately not listened. And now what this brings for us is an opportunity for those who have historically been unheard. Because we can't also sit here and pretend that everyone is unheard in this country. To be unheard, you have to belong to a certain class, a certain gender, and look a certain color. And so then, therefore, how do we then create this space to not be a space of an elite pack, but rather organize the voices of those who are already talking, but are rather unheard? Now, we've seen that government in the past years, through an austerity budget, has continued to deprioritize social services, particularly those that are aimed at poor people, which in mention is the education. But at the same time, we have seen a number of young people making submissions to government. We've made protests to government. We've actually convened spaces where we said we risk the risk of not being heard, but we will continue to talk. Now, our call as Equal Education today is to say, in the ways that we've been able to organize young people so that their voices are reflected through the submissions that we put through to Parliament, we have faith that this process, if given to the people in its true sense, can be able to serve what we're saying we wanted to serve today. There is no other way that this dialogue can be successful unless we give those that historically do not have the power to be the ones that are leading these dialogues. Now we bring that at the back of the local government elections, we are going to be having these dialogues. And us as Equal Education, who've organized the Youth Power Beyond the Ballot last year, using the lessons that we've gotten from the people, we've learned that these spaces can be easily hijacked by political parties. I will share a short story where we had asked to convene government and to ask to convene the local government. In the first dialogue, they did not pitch, but when they knew that we're discussing critical conversations that could influence how people vote, the next time we had a dialogue, we had thousands of people who weren't there to contribute proactively to the dialogue, but were rather there to hijack the space and push the agenda of political parties. Us as Equal Education recognize that political parties are not an alternative to liberate our people. The alternative to liberate our people is our own voices. It is the urgency that we've displayed through the different protests. It is the urgency that we've continued to display. Now we hope that when we get to resolutions, we will rejig this thing. I can share a short story of how me and other comrades have gotten to this stage today. I had to leave my home at 3 o'clock to get here at 10 a.m. I know comrades from Mpumalanga who only arrived at 12. So it means that even in the ways that this dialogue is organized, there is an elite pack and that there is a people who aren't heard. So we hope that as we bring it to the people, we will allow the people to lead and we will undo the injustices that we've seen in the road leading up to this convention. Nkos.
Igama lami Nkosikazi. Ntate Matlosa, I think you've got a very tough task ahead of you. Please follow that fire and wrap us up in this hit and run panel of ours because we are staring at hungry people. Just reflect on what you have learned in your role in the AU Commission and also just those lessons that I have been wanting to get a hint of because the Sudan has gone through this process as well. There's been many that we can list. Just take us through then that in a short 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. All protocol observed. Yes, I wanted to actually share from the perspective of the African Union, where I've worked for years, what we have witnessed on the continent, and then what we can learn as we're going through this process in South Africa. One point is to note is that this is a long drawn process. So it's not a once-off event. I think that we should note. And it actually goes through 3 main phases when you look at it carefully. It's the preparatory phase, that is where we are now. Preparatory phase, we're making preparations. There's the process phase, where we now get into the real dialogue itself, after the preparatory stage. Then finally, we have implementation. Because after the process, we're going to have agreements on why we agree and probably even a program of action. Then we implement, we monitor, we evaluate, we report. So those are the 3 main stages of a national dialogue from the African continent. Now, the example that I want to share, because we don't have a lot of time, that I think we should learn from. There are a whole host of other countries that have gone through a more or less similar process. But I would like to just pick Kenya. Kenya in East Africa. In 2007 and 2008, went through a major political crisis arising out of electoral violence. And at that point, then the African Union then intervened, because Kenya is a member state of the African Union, intervened and set up a panel of eminent panel group that worked with the government and peoples of Kenya to resolve their problem. And that also led to the new constitution of Kenya being adopted after the 2008 elections. And since that time, Kenya has had probably about 3 elections since 2008. They have not had the level of violence that they witnessed in 2007. Therefore, with those in mind, I think we can learn lessons from other countries as we go into this process in South Africa and see what works and what has not worked. Now, in conclusion, moderator, since we don't have a lot of time, maybe we can just highlight about 5 lessons that we can draw from the African continent. One is the process must, of necessity, be people-centered. That's important. It must be people-centered and it must be inclusive. 1. 2, the process must also be driven by a well-defined agenda. Well-defined agenda with issues agreed upon by a multiplicity of stakeholders. So it shouldn't be seen as if it is driving a particularistic agenda of a political nature, of whatever nature. 2. 3, there has to be a legal anchoring of the dialogue outcomes. They have to have legal grounding. They shouldn't just be talk shop. There has to be a legal grounding of the process. 4, there has to be an independent and respected convener. There has to be an independent and respected convener to facilitate the dialogue. And we're told that there are 2 conveners to do this in this case. Finally, we certainly need some kind of regional and international scaffolding. In other words, the SADC, South Africa is a member state of SADC. SADC must have a role of some sort to play. The African Union, South Africa is a member state of the African Union. African Union must have a role to play of some sort. South Africa is also a member state of the United Nations, finally, at the international level. What are the roles of these interstate bodies? We need to find a role for them. I thank you, moderator.
And because you raise such important issues, we will not conclude here. I have to ask this because it's important to do so. In the context of a country like ours, where the trust deficit is as wide as we know it to be, how do we have that conversation? And I'm coming to you because you understand the psychoanalysis of this country better than most of us here.
Thank you very much. I'm back to my professional self now. I needed to bring the cry. So I think for me, there's really a few things that we need to understand. I think the first one, I would like to ask that we bring the knowledge that we now have from neuroscience around how our brains work. The part of our brain that is rational, that is needed for this dialogue to happen, the part of our brain that links with the chemistries that activates trust, is different from the part of our brain that holds our pain. Our pain is held in the amygdala. The amygdala, the only thing it knows is to fight, to flight, or to freeze. If we don't fully know and appreciate what is stored in our amygdala, what is likely to happen, this is what we are learning in science. We can sit here and be as reasonable as we want. But if somebody does something that touches my pain, the amygdala gets activated. And here's the trick. When it is activated, it deactivates your cerebral cortex. So what we have to understand here is to be able to have the skill here of, first of all, what are you storing in your amygdala that is likely to trigger you? How do you recognize when people are triggered? And how do we have the skill? Because it will be really sad if we end up with a dialogue that is led from the amygdala. By the way, that's the crisis of our country, that we are leading our homes, our organizations, our institutions from the amygdala. We have the intelligence, we look good in the book, we've got the best CVs. And we're like, why is there a mismatch between how you show up and what you do? So we need that skill. When we are in the room, we need to be cognizant when we are talking about trauma conversations. Because sometimes we miss each other, right? If I don't have a lived experience of having lost land, my discussion of land is from the cerebral cortex. But if it touches your trauma, yours is from the amygdala. So we completely miss each other. You scream and scream, and I'm like, these are the laws and the responsibilities. So how do we reach each other at that level? How do we, another thing just that I want to say is that when we are traumatized, the automatic thing that happens is the defense of seeing another person as the other. And we are asking that we lower down those defenses. So how do we create an environment for the people that are facilitating that can enable that? How do we say, guys, we have now been triggered. How do we bring ourselves to be able to have a conversation that facilitates that? So I think we need that skill. We need to bring it in here. And my invitation to everyone that was here, your greatest work is to be awake to yourself. And so that you can be able to hear people that think differently from you, because that's what a dialogue is about. But when I'm wounded, I can't even hear the other people and where they are coming from, so we can be able to move forward.
Thank you so much. I need you to pass the mic on to Ntate Omar for his concluding remarks. And we just want you specifically, as the organization that brought us this Korokoro scenario, tell us how we take all of these conversations that we've had moving on forward to have not only just the national dialogue, but one that brings us the urgent attention to the challenges that we have and brings the trust and healing that we need as a nation.
Thank you. And thank you for reminding us about the scenarios. So I think one of the ones that I know the president likes a lot, and he quoted it extensively after last year's elections in his opening of parliament, and that's called the weaver work scenario. And the weaver bird builds this huge nest that can last up to 100 years. And he said that that's the kind of cooperative nation we need. So I like that image, and it's not your normal weaver that you find in the garden variety, but it's the ones you find in the Kalahari. It can withstand cold weather, it can withstand wind, etc. That's what we need to build from this. So in doing that, I think just to reiterate what the President said, that we need to put the interests of the nation first. We should avoid grandstanding. We should make sure that we are inclusive, that we're building consensus, and that we are willing to compromise, we're willing to listen. In that way, we can build this cooperative nation. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And before I give you back your freedom, I want to express my gratitude to my excellent panel. Even given the time constraints, I believe that the message landed quite well. I'm going to call back onto the stage Lerayo, who is going to give you the final marching orders before we go out to lunch. Thank you so much for your attention.
You hear me? Awesome. All right. I would like to first thank you all for your patience and for still being here with us, disruptions and all. As you can tell, our program has slightly moved around to accommodate the time that we lost. So just to update you on what we will be doing now. Before we break for lunch at 1:30, so that's going to be in the next 20 minutes time, we're going to have a session that is going to continue from the panel that we have just had. So I'd like to please call on Janelle and Mazibuko from the organizing committee to please join me on stage. They're going to be defining the expectations and outcomes of the national dialogue. So this is going to be just a quick session to echo the panel that we've just had. And they're going to be covering the journey to the National Convention, setting our expectations, as well as introducing the dialogue labs. Do we have Janelle and Mazibuko nearby? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mazibuko Jaha from the Zabalaza Pathways Institute, also a member of the organizing committee for the convention. Before we go ahead, let Janelle introduce herself.
Good day, everyone. Janelle Nadir. I'm from NNI Dialogue Institute and the No Name Initiative. And thank you for bearing with us, because once lunch is announced, you lose a room, and that you are still sitting here now for another 20 minutes. We thank you deeply.
What we are doing is to effect a transition where the convention is now being handed over to you as the delegates. And there's a number of things which we want to do in that regard. Obviously, all of us have concerns about the state of our country, but we want to start elsewhere. What excites us about our country? What excites us about this dialogue process? What excites us about the idea of looking at each other in the eye and finding solutions? Further, we also want to explore what frustrations we are experiencing and how do we want those frustrations to be at the center of the dialogue process. I'll hand over to Janelle to just undertake a number of activities to take us through how we go through those emotions.
We were hoping to move around. Sorry, so we're a little bit stuck with this podium right now. But let's start. So we've been talking at you all morning, and that is really unfair. So although we might not have enough time right now to hear everyone speak in this auditorium, that is what the afternoon is about, but let's start first. So raise of hands. So check in. How are you feeling right now? Raise of hands. Who is feeling hungry? I'm starving, by the way. Okay, good. You passed the first test. So raise hands again. Who's feeling like medium positive about this national dialogue process? Medium. Give us who's in a medium state? Okay, one over there. I've got a few. Who is elated? Like, yeah, let's do this thing. Let's get going. Whoa. Nice, all right. Okay, we're going to dig a little bit deeper, if that's okay. I want you to take a moment and think, how do you feel about this country right now? Allow yourself, take a moment. How do you feel about our beloved country? Okay, so let's start with that energy. Who's feeling hugely like optimistic, we can do this, positive? Show of hands. All right, this is good. We need this. We always need the hope seekers in the room. We always do. Who's feeling quite frustrated? For different reasons. Who's feeling a bit frustrated? All right. Again, getting about 30%. Go one level deeper. Who's actually feeling, at the core of their psyche, quite angry? Quite angry about whatever, whether it's injustices, things not happening, things not moving, whatever is true for you. Who's feeling actually a bit angry? And really, let's be honest. Yeah. So what we are doing now is just to start validating the emotions in the room. We're not going to work with it right now, right? But just look around at how people were judging where they were at. And as our previous speakers so beautifully explained, if we don't start understanding where we are with our emotions, we often cannot have the dialogue we want to have. So we need to make it part of the dialogue. Starting to track, how am I feeling? Am I actually triggered? How do I de-trigger right now to have this conversation with you and still validate how I feel? And so you will see when we talk a little for just 2 minutes about the structure, the meta structure that's going to hold these dialogues to make sure it's fair, it's inclusive, it's trauma-informed, it's safe, but also scalable. Then you will see that we need a structure to have the deep, meaningful conversations in a safe way. So I'm going to pause here because we also want to leave you with a little bit of a dream.
As Jonelle just said, we want to use this moment to also dream. So, as we dialogue, let us dream. Close your eyes if you want. Let us travel in our imaginations. Let us imagine a different country. The worries we have been resolved. We have healed, we have rebuilt, we have transformed. Anyone who's opposed to that kind of dreaming? Anyone who's opposed to a dream that resolves our nightmares? Any hands? So indeed, that's the purpose of a national dialogue process. But the way we want to do this is to impact beyond dialoguing, because at times the word dialogue is interpreted in a way which means talk shop. We talk, but actually we don't develop impact, we don't develop solutions. So in the dreaming that we will be doing through the dialogue process, a lot of it is about developing impact, bringing real change, bringing concrete solutions. I want to ask everyone to pull out a leaflet from the conference packs, which is just a single-page leaflet. I want to refer to it as we go along.
So it's in your bag, if you want to grab that now.
So, from the previous panel, from what Sis Nomfundo was saying, we've tried to apply what she was saying in this leaflet. There is a section in the leaflet which talks about dialogue principles. Basically, those dialogue principles which are being proposed as part of our process are very important. The first set of principles is about the practices we propose we should follow in the dialogue process. Listening to each other, respecting each other, even if we disagree strongly, and part of that respect is staying curious, suspending our immediate triggers, finding a way to let go of the need to be right, finding a way to always want to prove oneself, but at the same time, as we are grappling with that, having the ability to voice what we feel and how we want to do it. So we will experiment with this approach in the dialogue labs that will follow in the afternoon. But we believe that these principles, these practices, and what follows in the rest of that leaflet, what to avoid, and tips for good communication, will lay a strong foundation of how we can do it. Jonelle?
So we quickly want you to grab your phone and see if you can get that code. We might need to make it slightly bigger, but we want to see if you can get that code, that QR code on your phone. And if you have, just give us a thumbs up. We just want to see if it's going to work. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. Let's just see. So quickly get your phones out. I should stand away from you. Okay, give us a thumbs up. Who could access that? Ooh, it's working over here. So everyone, have a quick go. It's the last thing you're going to do before a beautiful lunch. So thumbs up that side of the room. Are you getting the QR code? No? Do you need it to be bigger? Can we get it bigger or not possible? I'm looking at our amazing tech people at the back. Let's make it bigger if you can. Lovely. Thank you. All right. So last go. Please get it on your phone. Let's get a thumbs up. Who's got it? Ooh, fantastic. Ooh, much more. Yeah. That side also, yeah? Succeeding? And I mean, if you're struggling, just tap the person next to you. Quickly help me out. Let's start this manner of collaboration. All right, people. This is how we're going to end the morning session. It's on a dreaming note. So we're going to ask you to take a moment. So you've got your mobile, you've got it ready, right? You're not going to do anything with it right now. We wanted you to be logged in. Take a moment to think, what is your dream for South Africa? And while you do that, I'm going to ask our wonderful tech person to move to that question. What is your dream for South Africa? So really take a moment. Don't just go for the first thing that pops in. Like, really allow yourself to paint the picture. Imagine everything we are desiring and imagining around a beautiful outcome of this dialogue process. The social cohesion, the healing has happened. What would our country look like then? Just have a moment to feel into that. What would it look like? How would we talk to each other? What would our economy look like if that was the case? Really allow yourself to dream. And then when you get there, start giving us your answer. What is your dream? So, okay, yes, either for the national dialogue process, but go a bit wider even, for South Africa, for this country. What is your dream? And that often helps us to get out of that trigger state that our previous speakers were referring to. It helps us not to be here on that linear place where we are connected to our woundedness, but to see beyond where we are right now. So let's see what's coming through. Masibuko, do you want to share a few things you see?
I hope everyone can see the text that's coming up. A more progressive South Africa, that's interesting. Unity, a middle-class social democracy. There's an interesting one there for government to actually fight for the people. Deputy President, That's a very strong message. A safer country, jobs.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think we're getting the
Equality,
idea.
equity, peace.
I think we're getting the idea. I hope our technical people can still put all these ideas into a word cloud that we can present back. Are there still people who are fitting in their inputs? 30 more seconds. Janelle, I'm ready to conclude by introducing the labs.
So thank you for this, and this is just a little taste. You will often see that in the dialogues we'll be running, there will always be a moment to drink to. We'll just not, dive into the deeper discussion. Let's first get our direction. Where are we heading towards? What's important to us? Where our values lie? And then we start the tougher conversation, which we have a very beautiful, safe mechanism to support facilitators and participants in. So shall we share a little bit about what's going to happen after lunch, Matsiboko?
Thank you. We can now turn back to our program booklet. In the middle of the program booklet, if you look at the items after lunch, is what we've called dialogue labs. We've deliberately called them laboratories, moving away from the tradition of commissions, because we want to experiment with a few ideas, with a few modalities. What came from the previous panel, but even the experiment that Janelle and I were trying out here. So there are 10 themes that have been identified, from the first theme, focusing on the economy, all the way to crime, to gender and GPV, poverty and inequality, land, and so on. Some of you, on the back of your tag, you will have a theme. Please turn your tag and see if you have a theme. I just want to see how many people have a theme in their tag.
Raise your tag if you have a theme.
Okay, it seems that it's a small number. So the challenge we have is that we do not want everyone going to what would be popular topics. I guess the economy would be one popular topic. So we try and ask people to distribute themselves evenly, average about 100 per dialogue lab. That's the first task. Then secondly, the purpose of these labs is to present the proposed modalities that will be followed. So what that means is that if your theme is the economy, rather than saying this is the economic crisis, these are the solutions, this is my policy critique, rather the approach is to say, what are the questions on the economy that will allow questions just now that South Africans must discuss from Monday all the way to the conclusion of the deeply democratic dialogue process that we will undertake. So we are raising the key issues, we are surfacing them. And then also the facilitators will give you a detailed overview of how these modalities are supposed to work for the word-based dialogues, for the sectoral dialogues, and for the other forms of participation that are envisaged. So in what the facilitators present as the proposed modalities, what is weak, what does not work, what can work better. So it's going to be difficult, but let me give you an example. Someone from a mining affected community may say, the issues in my community are A, B, and C. Then the task of the facilitator is to say, how does that reality of that community relate to a wider topic? How does it become a question for discussion by society as a whole? I know it's going to be a bit tricky because normally most of us who go to conferences, we go to conferences to resolve particular thematic areas. But in this instance, our approach is to say, here are proposed priorities in terms of the 10 thematic areas. And in each thematic area, what are the key issues that society should discuss? What is the proposed methodology for the public dialogue process? But also importantly, I think all the thematic dialogue labs also have a challenge to say there are other areas which have been missed out by the 10 areas which have been identified. So there's also an opportunity for that, to identify additional areas for the dialogue process that will be oncoming. I'll stop there, Jonelle, and you take over.
All right. So just to recap, when you hit your dialogue labs, please note what the values are of this process. Please honor those. Please note what the principles are. Your facilitators will go through that with you. It's really cool, like ways to also de-escalate and what to do in a triggered situation. And so if you have a theme, great. That is the place where you are going. Note that now. Also, your lunch will be close to that place, and ushers will be taking you there. All right, there will be people showing you what direction to go and also to get your lunch there by your dialogue lab.
There are a few questions, Jonelle.
And so...
Good afternoon, everybody. Speaking in front of you, my name is Sihle Sibisi. I am a founder of a civil society organization called Kwanele Foundation. We applaud the government for bringing us together for such a dialogue. But our wish is, I heard people saying they've got an app, we can use it on the grassroots, but what about Ugogo Ekaya? Ugogo will not know how to use that app. Number two, my question is, before we talk, what are we saying about the elephant in the room? Where we are sitting in our country right now, outside Maponya Mall, they are torching down taxis because they are revenging the death of the e-hailing driver. What are we saying about the elephant in the room of undocumented citizens that are in the country? Where South Africans, 70% of the files in our local clinics belong to non-South African citizens. I would personally like to not own a medical aid, but I'm subjected to own one because the clinics are full. What are we saying if the president of Tanzania can say spaza shops, saloons, everything belongs to the Tanzanian nation? Why is South Africa not making that stance? I had hoped that our Honorable Cyril Ramaphosa was going to emphasize on that. South Africa, we are broken. And yes, we are speaking from traumas because some of us are forced to take our kids to private schools because if the school is right across our home, they will tell us the school is full because it's full of non-South African children.
Yes.
Then we are now subjected to being financially crippled because our government, all you do is talk, but the implementation.
Thank you so much to the speaker.
Finally, my question
I'm going to ask you to wrap it up.
In our groups that you are going to put us in, will the entire cabinet that we see here be part of the plenary? Or are you guys going to leave us to discuss on our own and we come up with our own solutions, which then means there's no point of us having this discussion because you will not hear what we are saying. We are the foot soldiers. We are on the ground. All of you here have bodyguards. We don't have bodyguards. We had a colleague who came here from 3 a.m. in the morning.
All right,
we are
thank you
foot
so
soldiers.
much.
We know what's happening on the ground. And if you say it's a national dialogue for us, you can't shut us down. It's said that you are here because 2026 elections are coming. So you're trying to buy our silence.
All right, thank you so much. Let's give that a hand. And then I'm just going to pause here because this is what we want. This is the dialogue we have been called to do. We are in plenary. We're not going to go into dialogue now because I'm going to give you the reason.
This is not a dialogue. I have a question, ma'am.
You
I have a question. No, I have a question before anybody.
Excuse me.
Listen. No, excuse me. Excuse me. First, you need to read the pedagogy of the oppressed. This process must be dialogical. It must not be one-sided. You don't come to talk down on us here. Number one. Number two, we are 4 members of the Rastafari community here. We are all bundled up into one theme. We represent a nation of Rastafari, of 3 million South African Rastafarians. We can't go under one theme. We have issues that cut across everything that needs to be dialogued here. You don't decide for us. Nothing for us without us. Simple as that. And for the last time, this is a dialogue. Spend more time listening to us than telling us what to do. Stop talking down on us.
Thank you, Speaker.
Thanks to the last 2 speakers, the feeling, the passion, the emotion, the anger, the frustration, all of those are part of who we are. They are part of the dialogue. They are part of the process. There will be awkwardness, there will be discomfort, there will be all of these things. So now, what needs to happen if we are to take all of those energies somewhere is to ensure that there's a manageable process where all of these things have a place to land, to be processed and to be harnessed from negative energy to positive energy that really solves our issues. It's not going to happen in one plenary session. It's not going to happen because we raise things in a particular way.
Exactly.
What I'm appealing for, therefore, is that we trust in the process. These 10 themes are exactly, these thematic labs are exactly the platforms where we zoom in deeper to frame the questions. One person may have a perspective on why there's a health crisis. Someone else will have another perspective. We may think, yes, there's a big unemployment crisis, which we all agree on. But how does it affect people differently? How do we get to the fine texture of that? A big hall like this is not going necessarily to take us there. So the process that we're asking that we follow is exactly a process, Mr. Rastafarian, which will enable all of us to talk.
Yes.
So if we go to those 10 thematic areas as different groups, we will get a chance to talk. And then afterwards, tomorrow, we will come back and bring a report. And afterwards, there's a proposal for a deep process of thousands of dialogues where we can call in the Deputy President, where we can call in the government ministers, the MECs, the mayors, and so on, so that they can be accountable. So that's a long process, colleagues. And importantly, this is only the first convention. It is the kick-off of the national dialogue process. It is not the main substance of the national dialogue process. Let's keep that in mind. Let's not feel that this opportunity is the one opportunity I can get Deputy President to listen to my anger. There's a 9-month process that has been laid out. And what we're shaping is exactly a vessel where all of us as leaders of our sectors take society forward through a process of dialogue that's deep, that's proper, that enables listening to each other and finding solutions. That's
So
my
we
appeal,
thank
colleagues. Thank you.
We thank you for your dialogue and continue the dialogue after lunch. Please, please, that's what we're here.
Colleagues, comrades, and friends, we will be back at 2:45. That is 14:45. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Listen.